All right, everybody, welcome to the Farm Wisconsin Discovery Center and the Dairyland in Distress Town Hall meeting. We're so pleased you're here. I'm David D. Haynes. I'm the Ideas Lab editor at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. We're co-hosting today's event with the USA Today Network and the Pulitzer Center. Now, speaking of the Pulitzer Center, let me introduce Holly Piepenburg. Holly, raise your hand. There's Holly right back there. Holly's the outreach coordinator for the center. Holly's a graduate of Southern Illinois University and has worked as a producer for an ABC affiliate in that area of Southern Illinois. Now, the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting is a nonprofit news organization based in Washington, D.C. It partners with journalists and newsrooms like ours to support in-depth reporting. It has been a great partner on our reporting project this year. I also want to recognize Jim Fitzhenry. Jim is the editor of the USA Today Network Central Wisconsin. Jim's team and the Journal-Sentinel are partnering with the Pulitzer Center today to bring this event to you. And I'd also like to recognize Jen Zettel Vandenhouten, an editor who works out of the Appleton office. And Jen has been my partner for the last year or so in the Ideas Lab, and we're so pleased to have Jen here today. It's actually her last day. We're sorry to lose her, but she's going to work in Duluth. So congratulations to Jen on a job well done. And a word of thanks to the Farm Wisconsin Discovery Center. Isn't this just a fantastic facility? I'd never been in here before, but what a great place to congregate, to celebrate farming, the great business of farming in Wisconsin, and to learn more about it. Now, if you'd like to tour the exhibits today, you can do that for a discounted rate of $5. Just go to the front desk, they'll give you a wristband, and I would encourage you to do it. It's worth seeing. So here's how the event will go today. We're going to start with a panel of Wisconsin dairy farmers who will chat with Rick Barrett of the Journal-Sentinel staff about their experiences and how they faced this crisis. We're going to follow that up with a panel of dairy experts. Both of those panels will go about half an hour. And then we intend to leave lots of time for your questions, at least half an hour, if not longer. Now, if you have a question, please write it down on the note cards that we left at your tables, and we'll be around, Jim and I and Holly and Jen, to pick those up. I'm also sure that the guests would be willing to stick around for just a bit afterwards if we don't get to all your questions. It's a pleasure for me to introduce to you Rick Barrett. I think you'll see from Rick's biography that, like me, I grew up in a farm in northern Indiana. We grew up with manure on our shoes, and Rick did as well. He covers manufacturing and the business of farming for the Journal-Sentinel, and for the past several months has been the lead reporter for the Journal-Sentinel's Dairyland in Distress series. You can read Rick's work at jsonline.com/dairycrisis. Now, a pitch, if you'd like to subscribe, and we would thank you for that if you would, you can do that at jsonline.com/deal. So 2 words to remember, Dairy Crisis and Deal. We appreciate our subscribers because that's how we do the work that Rick has been doing this year. It's really important. We really appreciate it. And we still have lots of stories left to tell, including one coming up tomorrow that takes another look at a program to bring workers from Mexico to work on Wisconsin dairy farms. We're also going to focus much more in the coming weeks on solutions. In fact, we plan another major event at UW-Platteville that also will be free. That will be in March. It's a half-day event where we intend to get younger people, FFA groups, 4-H groups there, along with the great dairy experts in that part of the state to talk about what's going on. So Rick, thank you for all you've done. I should add that Rick's been joined in this project by Maria Perez, whose story you'll read tomorrow morning, Mark Hoffman, a photographer, and many other staffers from both the USA Today Network in Wisconsin and the Journal-Sentinel. So a word about Rick. I mentioned Rick has a farm background. Well, he's been a reporter at the Journal-Sentinel for 19 years, and I had the great pleasure of hiring Rick to be on the business news staff about maybe 16 or 17 years ago. Before that, he was an agricultural reporter for the Wisconsin State Journal in Madison. He's originally from Southeast Michigan, where he grew up in farm country, and his dad was a cattle buyer and a stockyard manager. He's worked as a journalist in Texas, Arkansas, and Florida, and Rick has come to know farmers in different areas of agriculture in different parts of the country, even though he's always called the Upper Midwest home. Now, outside of work, He and his wife have an old farmhouse outside of Appleton and 6 donkeys, all of which Rick believes might outlive him. So Rick has asked me to let you know that by the end of the day today, please let him know if you'd like to be in his will. Rick Barrett.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that very much. Today, I'd like to introduce our first panelist. So today we have with us the farmers, Rick Adamski of Full Circle and SLO Food Cooperative in Seymour, Tina Hinchley from Hinchley's Dairy Farm in Cambridge, and we have John Kepke of Kepke Farms in Economowoc, and Carrie Mess with Mesa Farms in Lake Mills. So I guess kind of the way I'd like to start out today is to just do this like I would do it as a news reporter. I will ask our panelists questions and learn from them and stand out of the way. So if it's okay with you panelists, I'll just start running some questions by you and we'll go from there. So starting out today, the first question I have for you, please. Coming off the downturn in milk prices and the difficult weather we've had this year, what issues will dairy farmers face this winter and in early 2020? Can we talk about that, please? So feel free, whoever would like to start.
I'll start this off. I'm foreseeing, because of the cold and warm weather, I think as dairy farmers, I think we're going to be struggling with heifers. Our heifers, to keep them healthy throughout the fall is going to be a challenge, more so this year than in the past. Bringing them forward and keeping them into the future production. But also the issue is going to be for the ones, all of us, money is a challenge. So picking the ones from the herd that we're going to want to keep, and just looking forward to the future of your herd for the best quality animals that you're going to have for the future.
Okay, thank you, Tina. Carrie?
I can add in, our farm sits along the Crawfish River, which is beautiful when it stays where it is supposed to be. However, this year and last year, we've been in the position where we could canoe through some of our cornfields. We have still not finished harvesting this year because we can't get into fields. And I am hearing this all across Wisconsin and in the Midwest in general, that the late planting because of the wet spring and now this continual rain all summer, all fall, is really putting a lot of people not just in the position that they can't make enough feed, but we're not making as high of quality feed as we would like to. At this point, there's a lot of folks who are just kind of in a position where we're making whatever we can to feed our cows, but it's not going to be the quality that we would normally make, and we won't get the milk production off of it that we normally would. I think there's going to be also a lot of bedding shortages coming through because, again, not a lot of wheat to be made. A lot of corn stalks can't be made for bedding just because it's so wet. And I see coming into spring that there's going to be people who are faced with just not having enough feed and having to make tough decisions because of that.
Very good. Rick?
I had been a dairy farmer, but as of 5 years ago, we're raising grass-fed beef and diversified our operation. But we have always been, my farming career was using managed grazing, and this wet year, the majority of the harvest is done by the grazing. I'm concerned about the long-term impact of what that does on the land because of the pugging, the extra traffic, the cattle traffic. Certainly after many years of grazing, we've got a reasonably good sod formation, and many of those fields were resilient enough to be able to withstand the cattle traffic, but it required raising up of the management level, but we'll see what happens in the future with, if it impacts the soil compaction in the coming year.
Okay, very good. John?
I'll add to what the prior panelists have said that, yes, definitely shortages of feed, both in quality and certainly in quantity, will be an issue, especially anything forage related, whether it's hay or straw or silage. Harvesting all of those has been a challenge this year, and it was last year for a lot of folks too. And so there wasn't a whole lot of carryover inventory for a lot of people to fall back on. So by spraying the shortages of forages and bedding products will make life interesting, to say the least.
Okay,
Excuse me.
very good.
And if anything else I'd add to that, you know, shortages of liquidity for the past couple years won't make that situation any better, because what's out there and available to buy is very expensive.
Okay, good. Next question, please. What are some of the biggest challenges you all have had since 2015?
I guess I'll start since no one's jumping for that. For us, we're in a position of transition between my in-laws and my husband and I. So we're looking at what we want to go forward with in the future for our farm. Right now, we're getting by because we don't have a lot of debt, but our facilities are old. This feedback is going to drive us all nuts, I think. Our facilities are old. As we take over, we need to be looking at potential building projects. We need to be looking at all of the things that need to happen to continue our farm, not just for my husband and I, but potentially for our children. So from 2015 to now, this uncertainty of what is happening has continued to plague us in our, not just today, but for tomorrow, because we're not confident enough that we can make the payments to upgrade and take care of what we need. So what is going on today is definitely affecting our farm's ability to be sustainable for our next generation. That uncertainty is something that definitely plagues us. I'll also add, and I think everyone here can say that labor, finding good help, has been very difficult. We're blessed to have some really great people right now, but we have not always been in that position. So we'd love to be able to offer a lot more money per hour to get some really high quality people, but we can't. We pay our employees far more than we pay ourselves. But
Okay.
That's what it's taking for us to just be able to get someone that's there.
Okay, very good. Rick?
I would like to carry on with that conversation. Carrie started about saying that uncertainty, and that indeed is a significant problem. Uncertainty is even more present than it has been in the past. I think one of the biggest uncertainties is how farmland prices are independent of commodity prices and the products that we're growing. So the value of land is going up and the value of what we produce is staying the same. We're struggling with land speculators, urban sprawl, some of us more than others in areas that the uncertainty of being able to continue farming is hard, and to be able to continue to own land with lower commodity prices is extremely hard. And then transitioning it to the next generation. It's very complicated.
Okay, very good. Next question, please. What have been some of your key accomplishments during this time? I mean, we've been through this very difficult period. What sort of lessons have you learned? What sort of accomplishments would you point to and say, this is something that went well for us, we were able to turn it around?
I really think when you have difficult situations, when you're working with family, This is the time when communication is so very important. I feel on our farm, we have embraced communication far beyond what we could have ever imagined. Pulling together and solving problems. I believe that with what we have going on our farm, we have just converted to robotics. The future for us is exciting. We are making it available for our daughter and any other family members to come and join us. I think that the ability to manage your margins the best that you can, right now we're all doing it. We're all managing the best that we can and figuring out those little tricks and how to get the most out of what we've got available. So being as efficient as we can and sustainable in the whole process as well. So making sure that we're going to be here in the future through the choices that we're making today.
Okay, very good. John?
I would add paying attention to detail, looking at little things, a penny here and a penny there, they all add up. Making sure we don't trip over dollars to pick up those pennies is also important as well. That we need to make good long-term decisions as well as short-term decisions. Being diversified has helped us through challenging times in dairy, although other commodity groups face the same challenges. But diversification has helped.
Okay, very good. Kind of going forward here a little bit, what will it take for your farm to fully recover and be well positioned for the next 5 years?
Personally, I think that's a mystery, and if we knew the answer to that, we'd all be very, very happy.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to agree with Tina there. Gosh, if we had a magic 8-ball that was pretty accurate, that'd be grand.
Yeah.
Like that'd help, right?
Right. I think we're all trying our hardest right now to figure out what the magic number is and how to make everything work. We are very thankful for everything that we have. We're thankful for our health. Health is going to be a big thing in the future, whether it's physical or mental. Making sure that we're here in 5 years physically to be able to go through with the farming that it takes, but at the same time, making sure our farms financially is in the right position to move forward. And just like John said, don't trip over those dollars to pick up those pennies. We're going to have to really, really manage and use the professionals that are in our industry to help us figure out the best ways to go forward. They're there. They want to help. And our success is their success. Whether it's your local co-op or your lending officers, they're there to help us through all of this. So they do want to help us.
Okay, very good. Next question, please. How would you all feel about the U.S. adopting a supply management system similar to Canada's? Rick?
Well, as a member of the Wisconsin Farmers Union Board, I am a supply management advocate. I do believe strongly that is a part of the equation that I was going to pick up with on the last conversation, that those outside influences about certainty. We tie together these last three questions about certainty, and the uncertainty, the biggest one, is about the variability that's coming into the marketplace, whether it be vertical integration, and there's no need for farmers anymore when that is done by corporations that do the production and distribution at their own place, and we're just employees of those corporations, or if we are going to continue as independent producers and participate and contribute to this economy. What I would like to see is a supply management system, not necessarily precisely like Canada, but there are many parts of it where the most important component is that farmers are at the table deciding on how much production is going to be needed and how it's going to be distributed. And I don't want to see a system whereby there is a quota, a price on that quota that increases the cost of production, and I would like that not to occur, but rather that be distributed some way evenly. But, you know, I just heard on the way down here that it's so much easier to agree on what we dislike than what we can agree on. And what we need to agree on is that there would be a need for certainty and a need for growth in the future, and I think that applies with farmers being equal partners in deciding that future.
Okay, very good.
I
Carrie?
think that our farm is part of Prairie Farms Cooperative, and we do have a, not exactly a quota system, but there's a cap in our production. And I would really like to see this idea of supply management be run through our co-ops and milk companies rather than having the government step in to enact this. I think that this is best left in the hands of the people directly tied to the milk, and so I would support individual co-ops, milk companies doing what our co-op has done and managing their own supply to fit what they need.
Very good. Okay, John?
I have very mixed views of supply management. I think it could work in certain scenarios, and it does work in certain industries, but usually those industries don't have very many players in them. Supply management, things that have worked, that come to mind to me are things like OPEC, where there's a small number of players and not 40 or 50,000 players. And I think that's a challenge that we would have to overcome, is how are we all going to play together? First and foremost, before we do that, I'd like to see some normalcy restored to trade, if there is such a normalcy to be restored anymore. I think that would help us. I think supply management would be a Band-Aid covering up a bigger issue, which is we're trying very hard to alienate a lot of our foreign customers right now. And as a producer that depends on those markets and who has sat on boards that have sent people on trade delegations all across the world, watching what's going on in Washington right now is extremely frustrating. I'd like to fix that issue first.
Okay, very good. And John, I guess coming right off your response there, without some way to balance supply and demand, are we going to experience more downturns like the one we've been through? I mean, is it just inevitable that we're going to go through this time and again?
Unfortunately, probably yes. And I won't say no to supply management, but I think we need to think about how we do it so that we have a responsible system. And there will still be ups and downs. We will need to make sure with supply management that we just don't have a down, or we just aren't always down all the time. That's always a concern too.
Okay.
Consolidation has occurred in Canada too, and in other nations, and it's unfortunately a trend that's discouraging to work with, but has been happening a long time.
Okay.
And it will not be a simple solution.
Okay. Next question, I mean, how do you all feel about the future of dairy farming? I mean, if you were talking to a young person today, what would you say to them if they wanted to get into the industry?
I tell them they need to go to school for something other than dairy farming. They need not to not come back to the farm, but they need business skills. They need the skills so that they can run their farm like a business rather than just a legacy. I think that if we get our next generation to come back to the farm with a more business-like mind than what we've had in the past, traditionally, it's going to do us all a world of good. Not just the individual farms, but our industry as a whole.
Okay, very good. Rick?
I would encourage anyone who is thinking about and has a passion to want to become a dairy farmer to do so. But I think, as Carrie said, that diversity and resilience and a very comprehensive understanding of the world of the environment that we're in. I think that all too often we've led to believe that the survival of the fittest, that social evolutionary belief that only the biggest and strongest survive, as our Secretary of Agriculture tends to believe, is not true. That the survival of the fittest is more of the resilience and agility and flexibility, because the ability to adapt and change to a changing market, I think the changing environment is not very adaptable for someone with a large amount of debt, and with a plan that the future is going to be only a duplicate of the past, because as the future, I think, is going to change even more dramatically than what the past has, and farming is going to be a significant part of that.
Okay, very good. Tina?
I tend to be optimistic. I love it when I host farm tours and those kids come up afterwards and they say, I want to grow up and be a farmer just like you. I am looking forward to the dairy industry in the future. However, I know that we need to make sure that everything that we're doing to help these young farmers get into farming, we need to focus on the benefits of it. And it's not just being a dairy farmer. There's over 200 different professions that are in the ag industry that are involved in dairy. Don't shoo them away. We need to absorb them in. Get them in on your farms in internships. Let them know how it is. A lot of these young kids, whether they're in high school, right now, my whole staff, I've got 4 high school kids that have never been on a farm. For them to be able to work around a cow is amazing. It is life-changing. We need to make sure that we have opportunities for these kids. If they want to do it, let's figure out a way to get them to do it. And I know our industry is cyclical. Okay, yeah, this time, I'm going to just say it, it sucks. But you know what? Oh my gosh, there is so many opportunities yet that we have not explored. Let's talk about the SNAP program, the WIC program. If we have surplus milk, let's target it there. Let's figure out a way to make these young kids who are struggling with drinking fluid milk, let's absorb it in. I'm hearing all the time right now recently, 94% of families have milk in their fridge. 97 have cheese. Oh my gosh. You know what? I'm a little depressed about this plant-based stuff, but you know what? If 94 are there and we can bump that up by just giving these little kids an opportunity to drink more milk, yeehaw! Let's figure out a way to get that in them so that they have healthy nutrition, which we all know is what is so beneficial about the dairy that we're producing. We're gonna rock this. We're gonna get over this. We just have to manage the ways that we're gonna do it. And if it is through supply management, doggone it, let's not hold those farmers back that just need to expand. I had to expand to get my daughter in there. There's no way that you can just stay steady whole if you have a small or a moderate sized farm. You have come. That's how these farms got bigger. So for me, I'm an optimist on this.
A lot about what does the future mean into those kids. And I keep coming back to dairy cattle are a tremendous way to keep Wisconsin sustainable from an economy standpoint, but from an ecology standpoint too, because they add a lot of diversity to the landscape. And I know of no other creature other than other ruminants that can take fibrous forage products that we can't eat that are good for the environment and turn them into food that we can eat. And so that's a very powerful tool. They're able to convert a lot of things into things that we can utilize, and that's long-term sustainability there.
Okay.
So long-term sustainability for a child or a young person going ahead in dairy, they have to be sustainably economically. That's very important. They have to be sustainable environmentally. That's also going to be equally important going ahead. And third, they have to be sustainable from a family-wise too. That they need to be able to entice, if not a child, another future farmer to take over in their position, which means their lifestyle has to be enjoyable enough that somebody else wants to have that job.
Okay.
And that's, to me, what it would take.
Very good. Thank you all very much. It's just been great. I really appreciate this. Thank you. Okay, for our next panel, we're going to have some industry experts. We'll call them up here, please. Sounds good. Okay. Thank you all very much. I'm going to keep the introductions really brief, and I've also just been told if you could speak directly into the microphone, should take care of the feedback issue. So thanks for that. So our experts here in this panel, we have Krista Kinkeneggy with the Wisconsin Farm Center, and then we have Sarah Lloyd, who is Sarah is Director of Special Projects for Wisconsin Farmers Union and a dairy farmer. And then we have Pete Harden, editor and publisher of the Milkweed. And we have Brody Staple, board president of Edge Dairy Farmer Cooperative in Green Bay. So thank you all very much. First question, please, for this panel.